As you've seen, we discuss a lot of heavy topics here on the Daily Report as we're constantly exposed to war, tragedy, and injustice, and the inability of political leaders to address the grave challenges we face. It's easy to become cynical about the world around us. Jamil Zaki explores how to overcome those inclinations in his new book, Hope for Cynics: The Surprising Science of Human Goodness. Zaki says that he was once consumed by cynicism, but after researching the topic of human goodness for 20 years, Zaki says, in several cases, cynicism is misplaced. He joins us now to discuss his book. He's also a professor of psychology at Stanford University and the director of Stanford's Social Neuroscience Lab. Thanks a lot for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell me, this is your own personal journey, in a way. Tell me briefly the story of how you came to learn something different than you once did.
Yeah, I've been studying the science of empathy, kindness, and togetherness for 20 years, and there's a stereotype that if you study something, you must live it. So people imagine that I must be blissed out by humanity's better angels all the time. But for all those years, I've harbored a secret that in private, I'm quite cynical. I find it difficult to trust people. I watch the same news that you do, and I feel hopeless and doom-scrolly all the time. So this book began as a way of exploring what I could do about my own cynicism, and I quickly found out how pervasive a problem it is.
And you didn't just go and read the great philosophers at the top of a mountain. You went and found data and studied it, and you have numbers and evidence to back your views.
Absolutely, yes. The science of cynicism is enormous, and it shows us that it's reasonable, I think, to feel hopeless and sad in the face of traumatic events, but it doesn't help us. Cynics turn out to be less healthy in a bunch of ways, more depressed, lonelier. They have more heart disease. They die younger than non-cynics. So it's sort of like a second arrow. It hurts us a second time when we lose faith in each other.
And you suggest, because one of the things you say is, and we run into this all the time, being cynical kind of seems smart. Like, yeah, I'm sophisticated and I'm cynical. But your argument is that it should be replaced with hopeful skepticism. Tell me what hopeful skepticism is.
Yeah, George Bernard Shaw wrote that the power of accurate observation is commonly called cynicism by those who haven't got it. So we have this stereotype that if you are looking down on other people, you must be wise. It turns out the opposite is true. Oftentimes, cynics, because they have an assumption about other people, stop paying attention to the evidence. An alternative is to be skeptical. That is, instead of assuming that people are great or assuming that they're terrible, pay attention to each person you meet, the evidence in each situation, to decide who you can trust and who you can't.
So be a scientist in a way, bring the scientific mindset. What are some other skills that people can engage in to get themselves out of their natural inclination towards cynicism?
I love the way that you're talking about being a scientist. And I think if cynics are lawyers in the prosecution against humanity, skeptics take a scientific approach. So one thing that you can do is fact check your cynicism. The next time you find yourself coming to a gloomy and grandiose conclusion about other people, ask yourself, what evidence do I have to back this up? A second move you can make is to actually treat your life like an experiment. Take small leaps of faith on other people. Give them chances to show you who they are. And the data are very clear that in general, people are more trustworthy, more generous, more open-minded, and friendlier than we realize. So if we pay closer attention, pleasant surprises are everywhere.
Finally, tell me about social savoring and social shark attacks.
Well, social shark attacks are this idea that oftentimes when we think about confiding in somebody or striking up a conversation with a stranger, the first thing that comes to mind is the worst possible outcome. The same way that when we try to go swimming, the first thing that comes to mind is getting bitten in half by a great white. But when we actually take time to enter the social world, when we have the courage to be vulnerable and trusting of others, oftentimes the outcome is much more positive than we realize, and savoring that, enjoying those social connections in the moment can help us update our expectations to be more accurate and more hopeful about other people.
So change your default setting to something just a little less sour.
That's right.
All right. The book is Hope for Cynics. Jamil Zaki, thank you so much for being with us.